Welcome to another CFO Wisdom Pods. Today with us, we have Greg Silas. He has an MBA, a CPA, and a forensic accountant. Basically, he's a futurepreneur mentor. I've used futurepreneur for funding for my first nootropic startup, so that's pretty cool. Greg does forensic accounting. He's actually a managing director at Dover Forensic Accounting. We're going to talk about that, which is quite interesting, right? When I hear forensic accounting, I'm like, SBF and FTX scandal and okay, what happened there? And yeah, that's always an interesting area. Yes, there's some drama in there, but there's also like, okay, what happened rationally speaking, and how can we avoid that as entrepreneurs? Greg studied at one of my favorite university, which is McGill, located in Montreal, Canada. Highly recommend that university to any international folks that listens to us. Greg, welcome to the pod. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and DFA?
Yeah. So thanks, Charles. Thanks for having me. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. And in fact, the consulting is only more recently. I've owned bars and restaurants in North America, in Colorado and Ontario and Quebec. And I was in Afghanistan, had a company over there, military contractor for a while. I like the adventure. And then I stumbled on forensics through helping out a friend go on her own. She wanted to become an entrepreneur, and she had scared of becoming an entrepreneur. And I found I had an aptitude for it. And basically what forensics is investigative or forensic accounting is you're not limited by anything, by accounting or audit. Whatever you want to look at, you can do it on your own. You're given a mandate to, it's one of three things. It's either fraud, like FTX is fraud. And basically you just follow the money, okay? Number two is insurance. So if something has a fire or a flood, they're closed, and the question is, okay, while they're closed, how much profit did they lose? So you have to calculate what would have happened if the fire didn't happen. So it can get complicated if the history is not smooth, or if like I did some jobs in Honduras, a gold mine, that's very complicated. As opposed to a restaurant, but open 10 years, very smooth, it's easy history. And then the last part is litigation support. So stuff I don't want to deal with anymore is matrimonial divorce cases, because people just want to whine about each other. But more interesting is like, well, you have if you're entrepreneurs and you have a big fight between shareholders, and one leaves and takes customers away and takes some people away. Well, one sues the other one for non-competition. And then I figure out how much money was lost by the one suing the other one.
Is it accurate to say that in 95% cases of life, it's better not to sue someone and better be just like, hey, here you go. Here's your piece of the pie. I'm a nice guy and it ends here. Sign this and we're good.
That's an excellent question. And the answer is yes. It's very rare that I find anybody that comes out ahead, because not just the time and the stress, because it takes years and years to go to court and the stress. But when it comes to paying for experts like me or lawyers, you rarely come out ahead unless it's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. If the lawsuit is less than, call it $150,000, you rarely come out ahead.
So it's most of the time it's ego stuff, right? And I think people should just think, instead of carrying a burden for 10, 15 years, because that's how long these things can take, why not just be agile, and be like, look, I'm taking out of my backpack, here's a pie, here's water, here's like literally 70% of my stuff, I'm going to go by myself, but I'm going to hunt some more and I'm going to survive. And here's your fair share, instead of like constantly carrying that on your shoulder.
Yeah, but it's hard. People get emotional about stuff, right? They get angry, they get spiteful. And so you're right. It's just hard to get there. Sometimes it's good to put someone else as a representative to do that, even if it's not a lawyer. But I like when I get calls from matrimonial and I don't do them, I tell the woman or the guy, it doesn't matter. And I tell them, what's going on? Okay, how much money does your gut tell you that your spouse has taken? Just give me a number, whatever you think. And they give me a number. I said, okay, cut that number in two and make an offer. Just get it done. It's right. Like you're not gonna be worth the headache of the money. Just cut it in half and go.
Yeah, or like Jeff and McKinsey. I'm not sure if you followed that one, but yeah, that was obviously behind closed curtain. And Jeff Bezos gave her like 30, 50 billion, literally.
I know, it was a big number. Yeah, big number.
But I think McKinsey was like instrumental to that. But we can probably see through the dots here. The thing is, when there's emotions, right? Anger creates more anger. It never fucking ends, like people need to take a chill pill and take that into calculations, because the thing is, once you get angry, you put your anger on someone else. It's contagious. They will get more anger. They will retort with more anger, and the fire keeps on growing. It never ends. That's why it's better to end it on
Yeah, and the
day
thing is
one.
that what starts off as something big enough to actually be angry about you end up like arguing on the small stupid things that are not worth getting angry about, and it's just so like even when I get angry, and I've sued many people and mostly companies. I do. By the way, if you're gonna sue in small claims court, $35,000 maximum, you don't need a lawyer. It's easy. I do it all the time.
In
Right now I'm in a
Canada, right?
lawsuit with Home Depot and LG Electronics. And I always win because big guys don't want to go to court. So small claims court, do it yourself up to $35,000. After that, settle. Do it and just find a way. Like, whenever you're gonna respond, someone says something bad, take a day, like write it up, get it off your mind, but don't hit the send button. Wait one day, go back and read it the next day, and you'll find you'll cut away a lot of the anger and get back to objective.
Right. Interesting. I guess that would be an entire podcast, but I just never had faith in the legal system. I believe into something that would be like more blockchain or AI powered to make fairer and better decisions. And like try to avoid the emotional side to things. And it's a very complex question, right? Like, is this company doing good or not? Are they being evil? If I gave them 35K and they reinvested back into society, or, sometimes there's this in mediation, like, oh, okay, sure, we will settle on 35K, but give it to my favorite charity or something like that. This, I kind of like that model, but I think that courts are mostly outdated and not so impartial, especially with a weird alien like me that lives throughout the world, has different worldviews. But that's an entire new podcast.
Yeah.
I want to focus like on your experience here. So you started at E&Y, then you formed like a technology startup that lasted 1.6 years. I mostly want to talk about the restaurants because I heard you say that restaurants were easy sailing. Well, shit, I've worked at restaurants, and some of these guys were crooks, they never like paid taxes and so forth. So like, is that true? And also with the club scene, like me, I picture like shady business owners, sometimes even the mafia, so is that true? Is it like easy selling and always clean accounting there, or is it like a bit more chaotic?
It's the opposite. It's retail. Anything retail is a headache, and the restaurant business. So I started off mostly in the bar business. The bar business is much better than restaurant business. Okay, you have late nights and you can have headaches, but food is a problem. Food is a huge headache, and I would suggest everybody to don't you spend your time on that. A lot of people have a cool cafe, restaurant, bar. That's great and all, but honestly, if you only have 40 hours in a work week, do something that's not limited by four walls. Because it's my first business. I had some contacts, I could get it done. But looking back, if I had those 40 hours back, I could put in something that could just keep growing, right? Now, I did grow it because I expanded into other jurisdictions, but my first place was still there in Montreal, Typhoon Lounge. It's still limited by those four walls. It's still my baby. I'm glad to have it, but the food is always a headache, and it's stable. Like I had a restaurant up in Blue Mountain for a long time. That's seasonal. That is like, winter and then spring and then summer and then fall. I laid off half my staff twice a year. That is a disaster. But in the city, it's a little better. The mafia and trouble like that only gets involved if you're dealing drugs. Otherwise, they're not involved anymore. There's no more protection money. That went out in the 80s. But yeah,
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Any fun story about that era there that might be totally unrelated to business, or like memorable stuff that happened?
Yeah, I mean, my first business, so you're deeply involved and you make great connections with both staff and other people, other entrepreneurs. And so other entrepreneurs were opening, they had on the same street, 3 bars opening the same year. And we all knew each other because, all struggling to start up. And then there was a tennis court and more like a tennis club behind my brother's apartment on Monkland. And so what we do is there was a hole in the fence. So we close the bar at 4 o'clock in the morning, we take a case of beer, and all the owners of the bars would go and jump in the pool, those, skinny dipping and drink beers late at night. That was some really good times in the summer.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Your experience in Afghanistan, I absolutely need to know about that. Like why and what happened. Any insights for us on that one?
So there's a lot of money in public procurement. This includes right now, like anybody's allowed to go on the Canada Public Works website and become a procurement guy. They have everything. I mean, every day they list things that they need, including services and objects and so forth. Some things are big, you need to have experience, but other things that sometimes they need some like tutoring or translation or anything. So I deal mostly with the US because that's where the big money is. And I had a contact who had already been a military contractor. She was a Canadian though. And so we formed this company because she had contacts in the military for people selling the contracts, the RFPs. And I was the CFO guy. So we set up offshore the funding in Bermuda and through Dubai was our office. And then Afghanistan, we started getting contracts for rocks, like to make the roads, the rocks and portable toilets. That was our thing, rocks and portable toilets. And yeah, it was a roller coaster ride. It was a crazy roller coaster ride. And you know, you one day you can lose your shirt because someone doesn't want to pay you $100,000 bill, and the next day the military that decides, oh, okay, you just passed a milestone. Here's a $500,000. Like the money's up and down. It's crazy, but if you're organized in that world, you can make a lot of money. That's why war is good for business.
Yeah, just picture an AI of mine. It scrapes like all of my businesses, and I tell it like, go generate me contracts, and then it would follow these weird paths of like outreaching to the Canadian government, finding out what they need precisely, and sending some emails, filling out forms, and then magically getting one day in my inbox like, okay, yeah, we'd love to order for 750K, and then the AI does the rest, and then like I would have another AI for my fulfillment part.
Well, I can tell you right now that how AI could be beneficial in that world. There's like the reason I didn't do more of that procurement in Canada is because there's too many RFIs to search through that stuff. It's too much time. There's no easy way to search them. You have to read through. Oh, I don't qualify. Oh, I don't qualify. If a robot could go in there and just say, okay, I know, like if you can put in the parameter, say, here's the dollar amount I am comfortable with, like what I can do. Here's how many people, like somehow you could organize the parameters, and then it could pull down all the information, and like on a weekly basis, here's the 5 RFIs I can apply for. Yeah, that'd save huge money because I honestly avoid the procurement website because there's too much information.
Right. So much potential with AI. Then I want to talk about your introduction to board seat as a CFO, futurepreneur, which is interesting. Like I said, when we started, I actually used their services. So you respectively spend 8 and 7 years at these two orgs. What did you learn from your time there?
Look, futurepreneur is a mentoring thing, and you know the reality is that most startups are very small startups. People who they have an idea, it's their first venture, and most of them fail, but they gave it a shot, and I have to respect that. Like, you know, who doesn't have a failure as an entrepreneur? And I give my best, and you make contacts, but some people the downside is some people don't take a full advantage. Like I'm a professional CFO, and some of them take advantage of that, and some of them just want the free money. You need one interview and you get the free money, and they did that. So, but you know, some of them don't take advantage of it, unfortunately. Board seat was one of my projects. It was a beautiful thing, still is the beautiful thing, but like we just ran out of time and money, so we put it on the back burner for now, and maybe one day we'll get back to it.
So I also use Futurepreneur, and they kind of plugged us with a random entrepreneur, you know, like I think she was doing like insurance for trucking, and we showed up to meeting, we're like, you know, and we were like 18 or something like that, 20 back in days. So I think like if I'd have one feedback for Futurepreneurs, just like pair with entrepreneurs that are relevant. You know, I also went to the Dragon's Den of Quebec, and it was the same. We pitched in front of 4 investors. They didn't know shit about pharma, so they never invested in us, you know. Yeah. Always a disappointment. So to anyone listening to this, like if you're either into funding or mentoring, pair people that have relevant experience, which is a hard thing. And again, I'm saying that because I run masterminds nowadays. It's called Level 96, LVL96.com. And basically it's free. And we paired like top entrepreneurs together. So I could pair Greg, for example, with 4 other top quality CFOs of your level, of people that have similar ambitions to yours. And you meet like once a month. And it's really important for me to pair relevant people. Like I cannot pair you with someone that would be starting, would be a waste of your time. That's called mentoring. So yeah, pairing is sort of rocket science, but it is really important in that industry. You've dealt with so many startups since your time there. Any insights or CFO/cash related insights that you'd have to give us for the world of startups?
It's always the same thing. Like people are always underfunded. They underestimate how much cash they need and how long the cash is going to last. Always. And so general startup, like, you know, you need to be raising money, and raising money takes 6 months. So plan 6 months ahead, not 3 months, 2 months, 6 months ahead. And when you finish fundraising one round, wait a month and then start the next round. and just keep going. And you're always raising maximum 20% of dilution of the company, not more than 20% dilution anytime. But think about it, keep going. Always you got to have show KPIs that show your company's doing better if you want to raise money, no down rounds. So always plan for something you've done that's done better than the past, and then keep that fundraising. And to do that, there's no easy path. You got to hit the pavement, shake hands, work the network. No simple way to do that.
Right. And in Canada, it's about also taking advantage of grants. I mean, I did that certainly with my startup. Do you think that makes us more competitive on an international level or less competitive?
No, the grants are great. What's bad in Canada compared to the US, for example, is that money is held back so much more by people. We're so much more conservative here, including the banks. US, they literally, they like an idea, money will flow at you. You know, I mean, they're more aggressive. They may take a bigger chunk out of your butt, but they are more aggressive that way. So I'm a big fan of grants. It's fine. And grants in Canada are mostly for forward thinking. You know, they're for, you know, clean energy and stuff like that. So if you have a good idea for an old startup of startup, you may not get the grant, unfortunately. But there's, you know, a great program like the CFBF, the Canadian Small Business Fund. That's a great one. You know, that's pretty easy to get that actually.
Now, finally, tell us about Dover Forensic Accounting. Sometimes frauds that you've uncovered. You mentioned that about the restaurants and the insurance claims. You know, I can certainly remember the restaurant owner that I worked for actually making these false claims. You know, it was pretty fucking obvious. I mean, the place burned 2 times, you know, then the other guy, the basement burning. It's weird because it was in this small city, you know, so they're all fucking scammers. These people taking advantage of these insurance company. The other was about burning his condo down. You know, what type of idiot or asshole do you need to be to burn your own building with some people in it? So like, yeah, that was very trending in the 2010s, I can say. So tell us about these 2 aspects and have some entertainment in there, but also some insights.
You know, the fraud part is not something that comes up that often in forensics, to be honest. I mean, insurance claims is number one because fires and floods and all that. Now, of the fires, which ones are bullshit, which ones are real? Most are actually real, and most are, and floods, of course, are real and stuff like that. But the fires always, you know, if you're not doing well, of course, and you can have a little arson, and then you can collect on that stuff. For me, like, but anything that's a small, like, it's not like no one's gonna get a forensic accountant involved if it's a $5,000-$10,000 case. It's not worth it, of course. But the bigger stuff, the funner stuff, is like when you have the shareholder fights, like I mentioned. Like, you know, it's one time, like one of my favorite cases is this 2 shareholders who are making millions developing houses, subdivisions, a big house, all the houses. One guy is behind the scenes accountant type, and the other guy is this big salesman type. And for years and years, everything's going great. And the salesman guy is, you know, he's sleeping with customers, he's sleeping with staff, but the guy behind the scenes, the other guy let it go because they're making a lot of money. Well, eventually one of the staff came forward and made trouble. Another one came to make trouble. So then, you know, it's become public. So the guy behind the scenes told the sales guy, listen, you got to get out of here, you know? And he's like, no, I'm 50-50 owner, I'm staying. So they had a fight. And then the accountant guy, the back scenes guy, hired a lawyer who hired us and said, we need to find a way to get this guy out of here. So we went and checked 7 years worth of credit card slips because this guy, the sales guy, put everything through the company. Everything. Not only put everything through the company, we could track his daily movements. Okay, daily movements. Every time he filled up on gas, repair his car, hotel bills. He went to the LCBO here in Quebec is SAQ. He started buying cigars and lottery tickets with his credit card. He was buying Spanx for his girlfriend. We could track his time going to the hockey game, and then we saw like there's a 3-hour delay before he checks out of the parking lot out of the hotel. So we knew after the hockey game, took the girlfriend up to the hotel. We found parking tickets outside of the girlfriend's house, not the wife's house, like little things like that. So it can get fun when you have a shareholder fight. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Again, I'm coming back to short-term thinking vs long-term thinking. You know, I think as humans, we invent so many things, even if like this, I mean, obviously the sales guy is the wild guy, right? Like out of control. That's like another discussion there. But if only they would try to see things over the long term and try to figure it out rather than like explode and be like, yo, you're putting us into hot PR waters. When you make a commitment with a partner, and that's my old school philosophy, you got to tough it out, man. Even if the other person changes, you know, and sometimes just stretching times fixes things. And something like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett lasting for life together, that's a beautiful thing. That's what I'm aiming for. Anyway, That seems, yeah, quite interesting, this fight there. And yet, like, analogies apart, well, that the guy should be definitely more cautious, but that's
I
also his
think,
personality, the
yeah, I
sales
think
guy.
what could have helped there, and to be honest, any relationship, business or personal, and you know, we've all said this, but the communication, like anytime I've had a fight in my past, I'm like, I could have done a better job communicating. It could have avoided a lot of this issue. Just be more open, calmly open, and share more stuff, you know, and usually it goes better, but people are not so great at communication. And I've just gotten better the last 10 years, to be honest.
Me, I'm still not super good. I'm still very cerebral, and I'm working on being like more heart-centered, because when I tell people about, like, look, this is how I think, yes, it is valuable to share this piece of data. Yes, there's a temporal aspect to it. So I don't want to forget about this piece of information I want to share. But yeah, I seek to get better at sharing that. I think robots will be quite good at just taking the heat, vs humans. With humans, like, that would be another way to communicate. But fascinating convo, Greg. Like, we would need to deepen that one. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, my forensic is doverforensics.ca. That's my website.
And I am Charles Cormier, host of the CFO Wisdom Pod. If you want to start a podcast or scale one, or be invited to one, or even find sponsors, you can go to podpire.com. That was Greg Silas.